Welcome to AI Gone Mad. I'm Kevin McDonald, and with me, as always, is Ciaran Foley. And today we're going to talk about technological socialism and the impact it's going to have on humanity.
So we're covering a subject that's technological socialism. It's sort of an interesting blend of effects that may be going on right now. So for most of modern history, if you wanted income, right, you needed labor, and so you worked, you earned, you survived. But AI kind of challenges that bargain. And so the question we're being confronted with right now is, what happens when software writes the code, manages the logistics, designs the ad campaign, diagnoses the disease, generates the movie, tutors the child? You get the idea. Yeah, what happens when it's running the factory? Well, one version of the future says, that's awesome. This is incredible. Machines do more work, humans get more freedom, productivity explodes, and everybody benefits. It's just a wonderful world. Another version says, nope, that's not what's going to happen. The owners of the machines get richer. Everyone else competes for shrinking scraps. And then governments try to keep everything stable with payments and surveillance and algorithmic control. And that's really the heart of technological socialism is, which way is this going to go? It's not old socialism with factories and 5-year plans. It's not Soviet bureaucracy with better spreadsheets, but a new question. And that is, when AI becomes essentially our industrial infrastructure, should access to that intelligence or that capability be treated like a private luxury, a public utility, or a human right?
So it's a great question, and I think I have to harken back to the Pepsi. I think it was the CEO of Pepsi who said that the water is not a human right. So unfortunately, the people that are going to be inevitably in control of this animal that is AI, their tendency is to covet and take the control and the finances for themselves. So I am not optimistic. I mean, we've had this conversation before, and I've spoken a great deal about it with my father, who was a lawyer and philosopher, and pretty deeply concerned about the human element of all of this right now. And unfortunately, I believe that the hunter, what do they call it? Hunger Games, excuse me, is more likely than some just positive outcomes at this point. The government's not showing any tendency to want to regulate, at least on any kind of serious level. The economics of capitalism are not going to allow for there to be distribution of profits from these companies. That's how you get an Elon Musk who's got $1 trillion, and the net worth of all 50 states in the United States post their debt is 174 billion. So I'm not encouraged.
Yeah. And it feels like with capitalism, we know the benefits of capitalism to move markets, to enable human labor, to reward that human labor towards innovation. It's what's enabled us to get here. So there's no
Yeah.
question it's the most successful model that we've had so far in terms of raising everyone up, in terms of material wealth. One
Yes.
could argue certain aspects of culture and indeed even quality of life have suffered at the hands of capitalism. But there's no doubt that everybody has benefited on balance. Now we enter into a new age where, what is necessary from the humans if the AI is doing all of this? And so we're looking at the potential for AI-funded redistribution. We talked on another episode about Bernie Sanders proposing that taxes be levied against the gains from AI and automation to fund some sort of universal basic income or otherwise. The other challenge becomes, to earlier conversations we've had, where do the new ideas come from? Let's assume for a moment that AI is not conscious and that doesn't have agency for quite some time, if it ever does. And so the reliance then on innovation still lies at the human plus technology level. And so how are people incented to continue to innovate, to continue to grow? We may think AI is the cat's meow right now. It's the ultimate. There may be something else down the line, that's even more magical and incredible. Will we ever get
Yeah.
there? Or do our monkey brains make us just fight each other and say, no, I'm going to keep this all to myself?
Well, and let's acknowledge first that I think the first round of this is going to be that. I have argued that as as we progress towards certain human traits being valuable going away, that the likelihood of some sort of significant revolution is becoming more and more likely in the future. The problem, from my view, is that you are valued based on a skill or a knowledge or an ability or your rareness, whatever it might be, is kind of the way I view the world. If your intelligence is common and there's lots of people with your particular set of knowledge, then your value to the capitalist society is much less. Well, now if you have an AI that has exponentially more, quote, knowledge than you do and can make decisions way faster than you can, unfortunately removing the humanity of many decisions, let's call it healthcare, financial decisions, things that humanity often saves people from what I would call the coldness of the algorithm. If AI doesn't have that humanity, which I don't believe it will, I think that's probably the scariest part of AI is I don't see it ever having true empathy or understanding why. Yeah, I understand that algorithmically or statistically that's the best answer, but it's not from the human perspective, right? So I think from that point we have to be concerned about where we're going. And
But
from the socialism perspective, it's got such a negative connotation, and I'm opposed to it myself, frankly. Somebody sitting on the couch should not live the same life as someone who's, up working 12 hours a day in the sun on top of a roof. At the same time, if you take away the opportunity to work and you remove all of the jobs and the entry level jobs, where does the innovation come from?
right.
Innovation, from my perspective, comes from a new guy or a new gal who comes into an environment and goes, "Why are you doing that way? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Let's do it this way," right?
I want to
If
pull
you're
on
not,
that. That's
if
right.
you don't have
That's right.
anybody doing that, where's the innovation going to come from?
Yeah, and then beyond that, I want to pull on that thread because you said something that's very interesting. That was the thread of empathy, right? So psychological research supports the idea that success, wealth, and power can reduce a person's empathy, and often
Yeah.
does. And so, if we're dealing with systems that don't have intrinsic empathy, what does that do for our system? And are we really? I think all of this goes to the crux of, you're right. Our intelligence is being commoditized, perhaps not our intelligence, but an intelligence. Speed, you mix in speed, and then you mix in permanent memory of everything.
And no exhaustion. It never
No
gets tired.
exhaustion. That's right. That's right. And so, but this all leads us back to not really is it capitalist or socialist? Is it, nanny state or not? It's really, as human beings, we need a mission for ourselves. And if our mission, it feels like, is expanding beyond the capitalist idea that our mission and all of our net worth internally is being driven by good work and this Puritan American sort of attitude towards it, and rather we're being forced to contend with what is our purpose and why do we live? What is a quality of life?
Yeah. I think on that note, there's a couple of important points. We're starting to see, for example, the youngest generation that sees AI as artificial and that computing is artificial and that life in general is artificial. And they're actually going back to art that's more physical and unusual. And you can tell it's almost like the more perfect things are, the less they like it. And that's because I believe there's a human desire to have art, music, creations that are human in their baseline. Capitalism, unfortunately, is not going to let go of its grip on the returns because those that are living at the top of capitalist society are living the best life. They have the most freedom. They get the accoutrements of being rich. And I have to acknowledge that what you said earlier, that is a very important point. I worked very hard on not letting the fact that I don't worry about bills, I don't worry about paying my mortgage. I have not had any issues financially for many years. And I really do have to look at other people and go, man, that spare tire that's on that car that I've seen on the same car for a month tells me that that person can't even afford to replace the tire.
Yeah.
And I've told you before, I do job driving. I'll drive around and look at what other people do for a living and just go, man, I got it good, right?
Yep.
Well, what happens when you get so far up in that line that you just don't care? Well, most of the people that are living in the AI leadership world are some of the most powerful, narcissistic, absolutely disconnected people on the planet. And so I don't know that we're going to get the kind of behavior from them that we need to stop what I call the Hunger Games separation. There's going to be enclaves of very wealthy people living the high life and eating the best food and flying around doing whatever they want. And then there's going to be a whole other set of the world that can't get a job because there are no jobs.
Well, this is complicated by the fact that we are heading for a bifurcation, and that is, as you look at society and you look at the type of future that we want, quote unquote, since we have agency, AI does not yet, then we seemingly are faced with a couple of different choices, and it feels like people are in one camp or another. One camp says technology to the detriment or benefit of all, and in fact, it's a sort of techno-acceleration or AI accelerationist point of view, which is, as long as the economy is doing well, we don't really care so much about things like culture or art or anything like that. The economy is number one. Those numbers are number one. And so our fiction is that everyone rises, whatever that means, right? And so it's AI first. And that also then leads us into people who are highly technical, who are dreaming of a world where AI actually governs us. Why do we need a government? Why not have AI make our decisions for us and do the hard work, heavy lifting, right? And then you've got another view, which would be the sort of humanist view, which I do think people are going to break out into as well. And those are going to be people that prefer living as squishy humans, devoid of implants, devoid of all of this AI, but living locally, for instance, potentially off the land in smaller communities, et cetera. And it would be easy to look at one or the other as being advancement or regression based upon a whole host of factors. But I wonder whether we're missing the mark. And that is a sane way to move both forward, but to correct the errors of our past. For instance, as an example, we have these massive systems, healthcare, right? Mass population healthcare, mass population food production, mass population energy. Are those working? Or do we need to decentralize a little bit and figure out how we live better lives as human beings in concert with? I don't know the answer to that, but
I agree with you. And I think one of the big ironies is that AI, for example, is one of the biggest threats to food production that there is in the country. We are seeing very large swaths of farmland being consumed by these large data center campuses, and the water that's needed to keep farmland alive is being consumed. We talked about that in our environmental segment. So I think, unfortunately, it's funny. I bring up my dad a lot because he and I are kind of politically polar opposite, but from a philosophical perspective, we're very kind of similar. And that is that we have to be realistic. Our society is built completely, almost completely anyway. There is some charity and there is definitely humanity mixed in. But most of the folks that are living their lives are chasing some sort of physical stuff.
yeah.
And when you take away the mechanism that allows for physical stuff to be obtained respectfully, meaning I worked hard, I stand outside my house and go, I can't believe that's mine, and I earned it, and I spent my life working hard to get it. I can't imagine someone taking away that opportunity and telling me, here's some money, it's going to keep you alive, but I didn't earn it. It's not mine. You know what I mean? And I think that is an important factor. They say there's dignity in work, and I actually believe that.
I'm not sure I agree with that fully. I do
Yeah.
recognize that having something to do that's meaningful in your life is what is key. I don't agree that work, as it's defined in the United States, fits that bill for everyone. So leave that to say, sitting on your butt all day doing nothing can certainly be damaging to one's
Yes.
morale and everything, right? Not having a purpose, not helping other people, not connecting with people, perhaps not producing something of your own making, perhaps not using your brain enough. All of those things I absolutely agree with. But this idea that we lump everything into work, and work is defined as being controlled by corporations, largely in the US, I disagree with wholeheartedly. And I
Yeah.
think,
So,
yeah,
but I want to back up because I have said
One
for
other
many years.
point I want to make with that though. So the dependency is shameful in this country, right? Dependency. I would
Yeah.
argue that we are dependent right now. We're 100% dependent upon our insurance carriers, our healthcare system, and our corporations that own us in general. That is a dependence,
Yeah.
and we're working for that dollar, but it's a
Yeah.
slippery slope.
To a degree, you're right. However, dependency to me, meaning I am getting something in input for no output, is my view of dependency. Now,
Okay.
I have argued for years those who cannot produce deserve a decent life. I've said that forever. If you've got a severe disability or something that truly limits, and it's not voluntary, by the way, like alcoholism being listed as a permanent disability, as far as I'm concerned, you can go, die in the gutter. From my view, you did it to yourself. It's on you. But the rest of the folks, the people that are born with physical and mental limitations, people that are just disadvantaged significantly, they do have a human right to respectable living conditions. And I think where we've come now is that anybody who gets stuff for free is evil somehow. No,
Yes.
I think people that are able and capable who do nothing are my issue.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
my
you
question
know,
would be what's valuable, and
well,
I think our yeah.
well, hold on. You know that as an artist, I agree with you. I
Yep.
spend my weekends making stuff that, well, I mean, intrinsically doesn't have a lot of value, but I love doing it. I've
Yep.
spent the last month cleaning up a property, cutting down trees and trimming bushes and creating paths that I can walk with my dogs and my grandkids. So I agree with you. But the I guess here's the question. How do you obtain what I have? Let's call it that. This beautiful home with a couple acres and the ability to put gas in the mower and the tractor and the ability to buy the supplies that I need to do my artwork because it's not cheap. Nobody's going to give that to me. And if they did, then why and how much and where do you draw the line on where what's your life station when you are not one of the ones producing for the capitalist society? So
Yeah. I wonder.
I don't know the
So
answer. I honestly don't, and I'm very confused with
yeah.
where this is all going, Carol. I mean,
So
if
here's it.
if AI gets rid of the bottom third, let's talk about drivers real quick.
Yeah.
Truck drivers are the number one middle class form, I think, or number two.
Yep.
If you take away that entire section of our economy, what are they going to do?
It's a
I
huge
mean,
hit. Yeah.
and how fair is it to say to them, well, you suck because you're not working? No, I have worked my whole life and you took my job away. Now, that was true of manufacturing, was true of other things. And I hear this, I don't know, pandering. Well, we've been through changes like this before. No, we have not. We have
Not like
never
this.
been through something this fundamental. I believe this is going to be far more severe and far deeper and far reaching than anything we've experienced in the past.
So I wonder in terms of maybe an approach to this analysis, and it's something I think worth really deeply considering. And I'm sure there are groups doing it, and we'd love to have them on the show. In terms of the physical nature versus the what I would call spiritual or cultural nature of existence. In
Yes.
terms of the physical comforts, the creature comforts, the life you describe is great for you. It may not represent the operating system for many people. Many people have different operating systems. For instance, for one person, perhaps their ideal is to live in a shack somewhere and travel the world and not have much encumbrance in terms of physical things. Maybe what they do is they deliver sage advice or poetry to other people around the world. They make friends, they
Yeah.
entertain. There are all sorts of different styles of living. And my concern is that painting a broad brushstroke, in order that we support an economy that is a machine, essentially, is now at a place where it's being disrupted because much like we got rid of variation in the genes in our food supply and now
Yeah.
only have one type of corn, we now have one type of person doing one type of work, doing one type of life here in the United States. Obviously, that's a broad brushstroke, but what I'm saying is,
No, but I agree with you
yeah,
that
we
there
lose
is
that variation.
generalization there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my question back would be, okay, let's assume that everybody gains the philosophical benefit of being able to do anything with their moral, ethical, communicative, artistic, warm human selves. And let's say that all material goods are taken care of because robots can create that. Is it the material goods that really bring that value? Or is it the life that you're living? And that's an open question. I have my own answer, but I'm wondering whether, forcing people to
I
concentrate.
agree with you. I think my quality of life is in the current construct, and there's no question about it. So let's just close on the value chain.
Yep.
We have to think that if we're going to figure out how to deal with what's coming, that the production line, meaning from earth to hand, whatever it is, whether it's minerals, oil, fuel, what do you call it, refined fuels, electricity, materials to build homes, etc., has to come from somewhere. And there's a value placed on it somehow. And if machines are somehow going to be the deciders, or are we going to end up in some weird society? There's a movie I watched years ago where you had to watch ads, and they actually had little clips that would keep your eyes open so you could watch the ads to get your tokens so you could eat. And that is, of course, dystopian and disgusting. But my point is, I don't know how you go from a value-based labor delivery for payment system, which is where we are now, to you can do whatever you want and you just get stuff. I don't know how we're going to do that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't figure it out, because if we don't, I'm scared to death that we're going to have, in 25 years, a third of our society that's unemployable.
Oh,
And
I
it's,
think
it's not fair to them. It's not fair to their families. It's not fair to the society to have people who either are intellectually, physically, or even geographically. I hit the lottery with being born in America. I recognize that every day.
Right.
So what's going to happen? And this topic is probably the most important thing around AI that we can all figure out, because if we don't do something, and the way Congress and other parliamentary groups around the world operate, they move way too slow. They're self-focused, and unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of bodies in their slow movement, and we need to.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And we do need to. I think this is one the core to this technology is a couple different things. One is in its magnitude, the other is in its speed. And the speed is creating the opportunity for us to make a lot of mistakes very quickly. And the magnitude is something that can either turn extremely positively for us or very badly, in the sense that I do think that it requires a wholesale rethink of why we exist as human beings and what we want out of life. I really do. I think our current systems have served us well, but I think going into this new world, there's an opportunity to redefine everything. I'm not confident that we're going to do that in any reasonable amount of time.
No, I think we're required to rethink it. And the question is, yes, the opportunity, we are required to rethink it. The question is, are we capable of it? And I think that's something we're going to be talking about a lot.
Agreed.
And on that note, you've been listening to AI Gone Mad. I'm Kevin McDonald, and with me has been Ciaran Foley. And thank you for watching.
Thanks, Kevin. Talk to you soon. That was good.